I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. I'm excited about today's guest. I've known her for a long time, but what I've been most impressed about is her commitment to the educational process, the system. She's worked in the K through 12 arena for a while and was elated to learn that she's branching off a little bit. So she's here to tell us a little bit about her experiences, her career trajectory, and what made her do a slight little pivot to be more intentional with her engagement through with students in the K through 12 arena. She is none other than Miss Kimberly Jones. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great, Dr. Wendy Wilson. How are
I'm
you?
good. Thank you. I'm good. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. You are stationed in the great city of Atlanta and have worked through the K through 12 system, but I'd be remiss. Let me also say that you are an alum of
Yes,
Albany State University. Yes, yes,
absolutely. Yes.
yes. We produce amazing people. Tell the viewers a little bit about your background, your educational process, what made you pursue the K through 12 arena. The list goes on, but I'll let you start there.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Wilson, for this opportunity. I have been giddy all week just thinking about realizing potential and having the
Oh,
opportunity to just speak, especially anything that is connected to my alma mater. I am just over the moon excited about this opportunity. But yes, I have always wanted to be an educator, probably from as long as I can remember. And I did graduate class of 2001 from Albany State University, the unsinkable Albany State University. And I graduated with my bachelor's in early childhood education. Among graduating that wonderful class, we produced amazing educators at all times. But during that year was a very special year because that was a year where we were mandated to pass our teacher certification exam before being able to graduate. And so there was that cohort of us is very special because Dr. Audrey Beard, wherever she is, shout out to her,
yes.
who was at that time the Dean of Education and our supervising teacher. That was the requirement, that was the standard, and that semester of student teaching was very intense, but proved to be very advantageous. Where I student taught was actually my first teaching job at Alice Coachman Elementary School, Dougherty County, hailing Albany, Georgia, also where I was born. And I started my education there as a first grade teacher. I went on to move to Atlanta, and I spent 4 years in DeKalb County, and I spent 15 years in Atlanta public schools, pretty much teaching, coaching, and being an intervention specialist in the sector of the metropolitan area. So right there, University, Hank Aaron, where the Mercedes-Benz Stadium now hails, all that area was pretty much my stomping ground where I taught and led several educators, just did a lot of different things for the district, including presenting and building different infrastructures around educational systems and curriculum. So it's been a great journey thus far. Presently, I work in Henry County School District, where I am the lead curriculum and specialist, instructional specialist there, and it has also been rewarding. It's definitely been a part of my career where I have decided that I really did want to step into this new juncture of educational consulting because I realized that there are so many gaps and pieces that are missing at this point. And I knew that I had not only the acumen, but just the experience to be able to help bridge our families as well as our scholars into a place where they could see individual success. And so working in Henry County has been very rewarding because I'm bringing forth a plethora of ideas and experiences that the district has welcomed. They have not necessarily had a lot of those different programmings that I have been able to unfold and unpack. And so it's been a lot for me to just teach it, but also for people to receive it. So at this point, I'm in my 21st year of education. I am just feeling like I'm getting started, honestly, dealing with my new consulting intentional intervention. We're just really just scraping the glacier and getting off the ground, but it's feeling like I'm back at year one, which is a great thing because
Okay.
it's definitely the field I love.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. And I want to unpack that before we really go delve into the consulting firm. But first, I have to say, and I think the audience probably knows two things. I feel like that I've the big sister of this family.
Yes.
And so, so I want to share that Erica Savage Wilson is your older sister, but
Yes,
I'm
she is.
older than all of you guys. But she has shared with me, I don't know if she told you this, that she was going to share this with me, that teaching is, and I've said this all along, that is people are called to teach just like they're
Yes.
called into the ministry. And she
Yes.
shared that you've been teaching for quite some time, even when you were a little girl. And so, yeah, come along and everybody have a seat. And
Yes.
we'll have to get Joelle to weigh in on how she was one of your students.
Oh,
but I'd
yes,
also
my
want
first
to
student. Yes.
your first student. Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if Erica shared that she was going to share that with me, but I love the story.
Yes.
How Joelle had assignments and homework and the whole sort.
Yes.
So that's one piece. But you certainly had a great example in terms of your mother, who is
Yes.
also an educator, and that certainly laid the foundation for you to move into this wonderful space that you're in.
Yes.
I cannot say it enough. Teachers do not get the accolades that you all so richly deserve. It's more than just providing a level of instruction, whether it be history, whatever the curriculum or discipline is, that you have those students, and a large number of them for the majority of the day. And they come in with their entire being and their entire experiences. And then you have to kind of navigate that and still be mindful of why you're there, to prepare them to take whatever instruction it is that you provide that's a part of their development, and then so that they can go on and walk into the next phase of their lives post high school completion. That's a lot. That is a lot to do. So before we go into intentional intervention consulting, if you could just speak to our parents out there who are, having the last 2 years, I, as much as I try to just close it out, I cannot imagine what that process has been like, because our parents have had to also really get involved and work hand in glove with our teachers in that virtual setting. Speak to them. Because they have to now be nimble. This could change at any time, as we've learned, but give them some guidance and advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. And before I pivot there, I just want to definitely tell you, you touched on something that I can be able to speak to a little bit later in the show, which is around heroes and people that I definitely look to. And that would be my mother. She was my very first example of an educator. And I watched her delicately, and she gave me all the room to just be able to be the teacher in the room. And it was just, she's definitely a huge part of my success and my trajectory. And Albany State is also her alma mater. So I was always loving to walk in her footsteps. And of course, my sister, who has always been my champion and cheerleader since day one. And so I'll definitely speak to that a little bit later if time permits. However, to parents, I definitely hear you on this. I myself also a parent, also having to navigate through very chartered waters to an unexpected pause, it almost seemed, in education. Times we have never seen before, historic, breaking educational just gaps, and just turned itself on its head. I will never forget March 13th of 2020, where we thought we were leaving the building for 2 weeks, and we ended up leaving for the rest of the school year, and we are definitely still in recovery mode. My guidance there is that this really does do a plug and a segue into interventional intervention, and a reason why I was really just standing 10 toes down and just positioned myself to say that we're in a space and a time where we have to recognize that a part of what the pandemic exposed is that we do have some holes in how students transfer information from grade to grade. We definitely know that face-to-face instruction, we look at research, it definitely is, it impedes itself on giving us the greater results in student learning. However, the way we had to find out what students knew, take that data, build plans for them, see what works, how we still make sure that we're educating them in a virtual setting was just, I mean, like I said, historic. Even for those of myself who had been an educator for multiple years, it was still extremely challenging.
Sure.
I, at this point, one thing I'm thankful for is that this has allowed the marriage of the teacher and the parent and other support staff to actually be a bit more solidified. To my parents out there, I'm going to tell you to ask questions, and ask questions. This time is more than ever important for you to know what your child should be learning in each grade. What are those marker milestones, and where does your child fall in that space? It is more important than ever for us to sit down with our children and to actually have conversations and communicate about what they're learning within their day, and reaching out to that teacher, to that administrative, to that support staff to find out where your child might have deficits, and not only just deficits, but where your child's strengths at. Because also something that was also uncovered in the pandemic is that we saw the strengths of children. We saw them being able to navigate through technology and to build presentations and learn how to do things on the fly. And some of the projects and web-based pieces and YouTube channels and different things that came out of this, as well as just even putting the light more on social emotional needs and mental health, has been very impactful. It's been promising. So to parents, it may sound like it's minuscule, but talk to your children and find out what is going on. This recovery and the way children have had to be malleable to this experience of being in school and out of school, some even contracting the virus, going back into schools, and just even the thought process. I've taken many workshops and classes on how children have been afraid of Zoom and Google Meets because they're having to look at themselves for long periods of time. And our children that deal with psychological issues and mental health, which we know is kind of a small conversation that actually needs to be on a bigger scale, has impeded some of our children's ability to just be able to be in class and to feel supported. So talk to your child. It's more than just academics. This has affected social emotional. This has affected mental faculties. This has been a change and a shift that has been difficult for adults. And understand that if it's difficult for the adult that has the fully formed prefrontal cortex that handles our executive functioning, it's more than 10 times more difficult for our children. Though they have been resilient, there is still so much that they need to be able to express and feel safe to do that. So please, as a stakeholder of the community, as the largest voice in the room, parents, please take that time in conference with your child's teacher. Find out the assessments and tests that are needed so that you can know exactly where your child is performing and how you want to bridge that as we're gearing toward the summer. And a part of our consulting is that we support parents and families in that process.
Ooh. Thank you for sharing all of that. My head started racing, particularly when you said, our children, the whole psychological and emotional piece, and yes, certainly the cortex. And as I talk to various practitioners in both the educational and the mental health and wellness space, and they remind me of that. And now they're pushing it in terms of that whole development may even go into mid to late 20s. I'm like, wait a minute, because I have a 20 and a 25-year-old. So I say that for a reason. Like, can we speed this maturity process up? But the piece about, I may have difficulty with seeing myself on the camera in the Zoom environment, this virtual environment for long periods of time. So processing that in conjunction with, now I need to, this algebraic equation, trying to process that at the same time, and learn this history component. It is a lot. It is a lot. Yes. So thank you for sharing that and the importance of, because I know parents, and I've spoken to parents who say, but I don't even know what questions to ask. That was pre-pandemic. That was pre-pandemic, some years ago when I've had those conversations. And then now the urgency and the necessity to just be very candid and say, I don't even know what to ask you, teacher Jones, Johnson, whatever, whomever the person may be before you, but I'm here as an advocate for my child. So just to help me, establishing that partnership and being honest about it. I don't know what to ask. I know I need to ask you something, and I'm here to support this process. So thank you. You brought in some amazing points. Tell our viewers a little bit about intentional intervention consulting. what was the catalyst for you to start this much needed consulting firm, and what can the recipients or your clients get from it?
Well, thank you, Dr. Wilson. I will say my push for this was that the years I spent as a multi-support tiered specialist, and what that means just in layman terms for us everyday folk who are not in the field of education,
Yes.
it means that that is a person that leads a school body or even just individual particular cohorts of people into understanding exactly what are the areas that that child needs extra support in, because our goal is that we don't want to overpopulate the area of special education if we can get in front of it and make sure that we provide tiered and timely interventions to, in a way, kind of navigate that space where kids are not just being placed in a sector where there actually could have been some preventive measures. I was the person in Atlanta Public Schools that did a lot of that work around speaking to parents and making sure they understood those questions that you just asked, where their child was and what we could do and how we could implement numbers of interventions to see, could we please just maybe diagnose or look at this a bit differently before we just want to slap the label on children. Because I worked in the urban sector for 15 plus years, I saw this very pervasively, right? Where parents did not know the questions to ask. And so because at certain times, educators did not want to do some of the different work to support the child, we would just push them toward the top tier of special education. Intentional intervention was birthed out of making sure that I could teach parents the proper way to advocate for their child by knowing the questions to ask and making sure we could provide those services. So as a client, what is expected is that I will tell you exactly the questions that need to be asked, and we will make sure that we test your child properly to make sure we know exactly where your child is performing. Also, with intentional intervention, we teach parents what your child should know at each level of their educational career. As they are matriculating, are they hitting these mile markers? We look at now districts and other institutions of higher learning. We have standard strategic goals. We have areas that we know that children need to be proficient and fluent in order to be college or career ready. So intentional intervention serves as more of a buffer. It becomes the medium to make sure that our children are getting to those spaces. A lot of our work is aligned around strategic goals for our state of Georgia and just for individual districts. One thing we know right now coming out of the pandemic, we want our children to be powerful readers and writers. We know that when children are powerful readers, writers, and speakers, they can conquer almost any field as it relates to career and being ready for college. So when coming to intentional intervention, we are making sure that we test and we tell parents what their child's reading level is, how fluent their child is able to read. If their child is meeting speech markers, we're able to tell parents children's math fluency skills. We're letting parents know, is your child able to write with a written expression that is able to be grade level standard? We teach them that. And out of that, if there are deficits, we're able to then attach specific interventions that are research-based. We have an arsenal of research-based interventions, and we give those to the parents, and we actually teach the parents how they can intervene there at home. So it is more of a teaching tool, because what we realize is that we are the first teachers. We send our children to school, and please know I know it because I have children, they're grown now, but I remember even being a teacher where I was like, you didn't learn that at school. What did you do all day? So
Right.
we work with parents to let them know these are the questions to ask your child. This is exactly where your child is performing. These are the research-based interventions that we are measuring to see individual scholar success. And we teach parents that scholar success is based on that child. So we teach them not to do comparative analysis, because Wendy is reading here and she's in the same grade level as Kim. It does not mean they will perform on the same level at all times. Children don't always perform on the same level of their norm age peers, but we know how to actually accelerate Wendy and we know how to intervene for Kim. So it's pieces where enrichment also is a part of our packages. So we tell parents intentional intervention is not just about I believe my child is really behind and needs to be retained. It's also about the gifted scholar, because a lot of times those children are left behind because they are smart and they know and they can navigate. But sometimes parents are unaware that just because they are gifted label, they still have some areas that they need to be enriched. They still have some critical thinking points that can be elevated, and those children can have even more of a preparatory experience to be ready for the next phase of their next phase of learning. So differentiation is key. And we're just excited about making sure that we're advocating the right way. We're advocating authentically, and it's individually and tailored toward your child.
Well, thank you for that last part about the need to tailor and recognize that there are different types of learners.
Yes.
I think it becomes, and I understand how taxed the educational system is, and the
Yes.
shortage of teachers, and the large volume of students, and then it's certainly based upon the district and how that, will exacerbate already present issues. And then now, we are post-pandemic, if you will. So all of those. And then I believe as a co-educator, what we will then see is we're still learning the impact of those 2 years and what that will, I can't imagine what that will look like. So being proactive in the process. But you made me recall a moment when I was in many moons ago, when I was in maybe the 3rd grade. There was this young man, I do not recall his last name, and that's probably a good name, but his name was Aaron. And Aaron he was extremely rambunctious. He kept, the whole class had to stop because we had to pay attention to Aaron, and he was causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine, I went to a parochial school, but I imagine that he would have been quickly labeled as, or placed into special ed, because he just could not keep still.
Yes.
But fortunately, they did some testing with Aaron. I've never forgotten this. And they later discovered that Aaron was actually gifted and did not belong in that setting because he was not being challenged. Thus, the constant acting out. So I can only imagine how many other Aarons have gone through the K through 12 system for years and years and been mislabeled, and gone into, a special education environment instead of being placed in a gifted environment.
Yes.
That's one piece that I want to bring out. The other part I will never also recall before we consolidated, and I worked at Darden State College at the time, and I played a role in, the academic advising and getting students registered for their class. And it would pain me because we would have entering freshmen, and of course, Access Institution, and you start looking at their high school curriculum and their transcripts, and then explaining to them that they have to take some classes that they should have taken in high school.
Yes.
Then you start having further conversations, and throughout that dialogue, it would then be, the discovery would be made that they were not advised properly, and they were automatically placed on a technical track instead of a college preparatory track.
Yes.
And that may, I don't know if that was because of their GPA at that particular time. It could have been a myriad of reasons why. But those unfortunate moments where there was not conversation had, either with the parents, with the students, or both, to say this, if there are plans to go to college, this is what you need to take. So again, as much, there are great things that the educational system does, but there are quite a few pain points that are impacting the success of our students. So I am just elated to know that intentional intervention counseling is then taking that step to say, let's take a holistic approach, have a conversation with all of the key stakeholders. I'd like to learn a little bit more, but I think it's important that we take a little break, and then we'll come right back to learn how potential clients can connect with you, what they then need to bring to the table. And I know you have like a three-tiered approach about engaging students and their parents. So we want to learn about that. Viewers, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with the amazing Miss Kimberly Jones.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school or even let alone go to college, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter Brooklyn was also a motivation for me to go back to school.
It's been so amazing to be able to give our child the life that we kind of pictured us having, even though we didn't really have that.
I've been in foster care my whole life.
He's so strong to just be able to leave that all behind and still be able to take care of his daughter and be a good husband.
Every day after work, went straight to school, studied hard, and it paid off. This could not be real. I could not have done it alone.
We've been through so much in our life, and he never used that as an excuse, but as motivation to do better.
I see the future is really bright for me. The high school diploma is just added to the confidence, and now I feel unstoppable.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hello, viewers. Welcome back to Realizing Potential. I have the amazing Miss Kimberly Jones with me. She is educator extraordinaire. Kimberly, we're talking about intentional intervention consulting, and thank you for what you've shared thus far. As I said, my head is still spinning because although much work has been done, the reality is we have some school systems that are overburdened, undertaxed, overtaxed, under-resourced, the list goes on and on, but still have the responsibility of providing a quality education to the students that don those doors on a regular basis. So you then had this brilliant idea because of your over 20-year experience in the education K through 12 system, that you wanted to further support. You understand that you experienced and observed some major deficiencies as to how the system was supporting its students and the parents that entrust K through 12 with their development of their children.
Yes.
You have a three-tiered approach or a three-tiered package that your clients can pursue. Share with the viewers what that looks like and how they can take advantage of that support. And is it only specific to the Atlanta, Henry County arena?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wilson. Our three-pronged approach is actually available throughout the entire United States of America.
Right.
So it is not just to our particular sector, because one thing we know is that children need support and parents need support as well. What makes our approach very different is that we are not just shifting your child off to a tutor, or this is not just a parent-teacher conference. This is more of also parent involvement. Because you said something very profound, Dr. Wilson. You said that we don't know what can happen in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
We have these variants that come out left, right, up, down, over, out. Right. We don't know when school may have to possibly shut down. Right now, it seems that we're enjoying seemingly a wave where kids have been in school for a certain period of time where it has not been so episodic, and students have been able to be in face-to-face instruction and actually glean from their teachers. But once again, we have surges that happen, right? We're getting ready to go on summer vacations and all these other things, and 4th of July, and we don't know what we may necessarily walk back into. So we're learning not to eliminate the pandemic, but to live with it and to understand how to better protect ourselves. And in all of that, our children's education is constantly being impacted. So a part of intentional intervention's goal is to make sure our parents stay informed and in front of it. And if we do go to that place, or even if we don't, you know exactly what your child needs, and you know how to continue to advocate for your child. So that if you do want to branch off in a different tutoring sector, because we have a lot of different tutoring companies that have popped up, we want to make sure that we gave you the proper education. so that you know what you're spending your money on. You know the type of help your child actually needs, so that when your child is going to school, you're able to then take a document that is foolproof, that is research-based, to say, this is exactly what I know my child needs, and I want to make sure those needs are getting met.
That's
Yes.
So we have different packages. I'm a
Yes.
parent, have 2 children. I'm coming to you. And again, the point that you made earlier, and each of them has different learning styles.
Yes.
So I don't know which package Jeffrey would need and which package Iman would need. What type of assessment process do we go through? And then what would then be you mentioned that I'm going to walk away with the tangible document to be able to
Yes.
take to their respective instructors or their teachers to say, hey, this is how we're armed with the proper tools
Yes.
to help support you, teacher X, with their development.
Yes, so we have 3 different packages. Our first package is just baseline assessments. What we call baseline assessments, or we assess to see your child's fluency, how they are reading, the level they are reading on. So if your child is coming to me as a 3rd grader, I know exactly how many words per minute your 3rd grader should be reading, the level of fluency your child should have, and what level of book they should be reading. So I'm not just sending my baby to the library, but I can say I am sending Wendy to the library with an exact zone of proximal development. That means exactly where she's reading. So she's reading books that she understands, and she's not just picking up a book and flipping the pages, right? She actually is reading something she understands and she can comprehend. We do comprehensive tests to be able to say, okay, what does your child understand when they are reading? Do they understand that material? We do standard testing to see how does your child rank in a normative setting. That means in national settings of percentiles, as well as just in that state standards, because different states have different percentiles or quartiles in which their children, rank for education. We do math fluency as well. And we also do a social emotional screener, because we want to know, we are not psychologists or psychiatrists, but we do have simple behavior intervention screeners that can let you know as a parent exactly how the pandemic, how these other outside mitigating forces, things that your child just may have difficulty with, how it's impeding their instruction. So we have behavior screeners as well. That's our first package. It's just purely informative. As a parent, we will explain each assessment to you, and you just may want to know, where is Wendy? What level is Wendy reading on? I want to know this because I then want to take this to the school. So that's our first package. It's very baseline. It gives you all your information. You are armed with those levels, and trust me, we will explain it to you and you will know exactly where your child's performing.
Right.
Our second package goes a little bit more in depth. We still do all the things in the first package. We do all of the baseline testing, but on top of that, we have a recommendation report. So the recommendation report is where you can take to any school in the nation, and they will be able to accept to say your child is here, they are there. And we also attach all of the interventions that your child would need, as well as acceleration tools, enrichment tools. We provide a myriad of different recommendations for your child. Some of those things could be some things that you think are a little out of the box. We may say that your child needs to join a chess club, or this would be better for your child to do this, or here are a list of readings that will be really great for your child. Or these are some social interactive clubs that will really benefit them from us doing the behavior screener and just finding out a little bit more about your child. Here are some different books and workbooks that you can order. You can order them through us. We can do the ordering for you as a package deal, or you can order these things yourself. And this is the number of times your child needs to work through this. And we also do what we call follow-up, where we do quarterly follow-ups to find out how things are working for your child with the intentional intervention recommendations. Our last package is our highly tiered package, our package 3. And this is where we actually have a lot of involvement, because we actually are able to advocate for you on behalf of the school level. We will write those letters. We will make sure that your child is getting those particular interventions from the teacher, because we will help write up a particular intervention plan. We are willing to also make sure that 2 to 3 times a week that we are checking in with you to make sure that you understand how to make sure those interventions are being implemented at home. So we give you a home-based kit, as well as what that child needs at school. So the home-based kit is very curated to the child according to the level they are working on. Like we stated, it can be accelerated, or it could be something more on that intervention basis of deficit where we're closing those gaps. And parents, we also are so happy to work with our students that are in special education and that have exceptionalities. We have on staff several people that have written individualized education plans and then understand best practices. So we're able to read through that IEP for you to make sure your child is getting all of the necessary services. So that also comes in our last tiered package as well. So our last tiered package, we are very involved with a school-based as well as a home kit for intervention, all of those things that were also in that previous package as well for each parent and our scholars.
Great, great, great. And what I want to be clear, and just if you could reiterate this with our viewers and our parents out there, it is not just for those students, children who have been identified on that IEP track or that special ed track. It is broad-based. Any student and parent can take advantage of this. It
Absolutely.
Sounds like, great tools. Because again, at the core of all of this, there are different learning styles. And so the partnership, from what I'm hearing and understanding, goes well beyond the you and the parent in support of the student, but also a school system. If I were a school system or a superintendent, I would love to partner with you, because that's, again, easing my level of responsibilities, or better, I don't want to say easing, but you're helping to enhance that, because we know that there are just so many shortages. And so you come in and fill those gaps.
Yes. And we do it out of a space of just having the expertise and the professionalism. And we pride ourselves on professionalism, knowing how to speak to people and ask the right questions. Questions reveal concern. But Dr. Wilson, as you pointed out, there's so many times we don't know the questions to ask.
That's right. I
am blessed to be an educator. And so my children know I was all up in the business, all in the mix. I knew when something was not right. I would send an email. We are willing to send those emails for our parents to make sure that we are communicating in an efficacious way that makes sure that the school system, teachers, teacher X or Y, they understand that we're serious. And these are things also we have to understand that these are our rights of our children being in public education. And we are not also opposed to private education. So we've definitely worked with people also in the private education sector, because one thing we know is that teachers are overwhelmed right now. So we don't want the message to be that people are not doing what they're supposed to do. I love what you said, Dr. Wilson. It's more of an enhancement, a complementary service where we are walking alongside and partnering, because this is the work that is going to take a village. So we are absolutely going to have to work together. From what we are seeing right now, I teach teachers every day. And so when teaching them, I also have to become a friend and relational. And I hear them when they're pouring out about being burned out and, Kim, what do I do? And what I tell them is that, listen, right now, we have to get used to having one another's back and taking feedback, because this is a shift. This is not about a target or a bullseye on the teacher's back. This is about we're going through, and we have been through, a shift in education. This paradigm shift looks like one we have never seen before.
Correct.
So because we have to go through this shift and we're experiencing this shift, our practices also have to shift. Absolutely. So we need all of the support possible.
Absolutely. As we prepare to wrap up, I was just the author, and I know you're familiar with him, Jonathan Kozol, and I recall the book, and it's still, I read it probably some 28 years ago, and Savage Inequalities. Yes. And I'm still processing that book. Yes. And the indeed savage inequalities throughout the educational system, depending upon your zip code and what students have to experience. And then now, coupled with this pandemic era, it is just unimaginable what our students have to go through. But again, it is our responsibility. Thank you for saying that we have to adjust and be ever present in this paradigm shift. You cannot ignore it or still operate in the same manner in which we did prior to this.
Yes.
And so it is absolutely, you know, building the airplane as we fly it, but being mindful that we just have to continue on in this process, and accessing all of the available resources is absolutely critical. So thank you. I'm excited about intentional intervention consulting. Before we wrap up, I'm going to go into teacher mode, and I cannot remember, you can tell what kind of teacher I would have been, what assignment I gave you. I cannot remember if I asked you to share, be prepared to share with our viewers a book that has most impacted you, that you find yourself going back to periodically outside of your preferred religious text. Or did I ask you in your assignment to identify 3 people on an international level that our viewers would be familiar with, that you would have over for dinner? And who would those individuals be? And what would you serve?
Well, you add a little bit to the assignment, but you know what? I'm loving it. I am loving it. I really do. For me, one of you just stated a book that has definitely been on my heart that I read as an educator around savage inequalities, and just that I want to be able to touch on that a little bit, because that book has also been a huge, big rock in me processing how I've moved through education. Equity has been a huge part also around intentional intervention, because I worked in an urban sector and I saw Black and brown babies that were just not given the same afforded just the same privileges as some of our children that were on the north side. And I watched how we taught and we greased our palms, and we worked 10 times just more to make sure those babies had a fighting chance. I said to myself, this is something that does not just belong to one group. This belongs to each child to have an opportunity. And as I have moved in working with other demographics, one thing that I've seen, Dr. Wilson, is that a child is a child. Though there are certain children that don't have certain advantages, children are children to their core. And there are certain defining things that all children need, and all children should have the access, opportunity, and the ability to have an outcome that is going to be conducive for them being a productive citizen in a global society. And one of those biggest pieces is education. Nelson Mandela tells us that is the one weapon that we have. No one can take that away from us. Once we are educated, it is within us. And we are then able to take that and spread that seed everywhere. So I love that book. I also am a lover of a person, I will tell you, that I would love to have to dinner. And this is, will probably blow some people's mind, but I love Marva Collins. I'm a Marva Collins lover. Though she has passed away, that was really my educational hero in the sense of like in the culture piece. When I read her book, I also watched the movie with our late and great Cicely Tyson playing her. And when I saw that was, and I watched it as a child, that was my jam and juice to just say, you know what, I can build a classroom. So as we talked about at the beginning of our session, that was where my little sister Joelle, I love her, she'll watch this later, where she was my first student. I was hard on Joelle. My mother would bring me all of the teacher's editions from her job, the old ones that were just outdated and archived, and I had an entire room set up. She knew from the hours of 4 to 6, she was a student. I had a report card for her. It was real business. I mean, check marks, graded work, but I'd say that to say that was pivoting off of Marva Collins. Her having in her own basement, building a private school, a preparatory school, and basing that on the needs of inner city children, and so many children that were the products of her hard work, despise not small beginnings, and how she is now just revered, as just this educational, statuesque icon, right? In which the Socratic seminar was even built off of her practices. And I say that is big for me because I was trained in high school to speak, and I went and did several speech competitions and won, living in California. But so much of that was based off of that Socratic piece, being able to speak to a topic, stay on that topic, use the right acumen, and be able to make sure that your audience sees your speech and your words as believable. And I look at a lot of her works, and they were all based in that. And when my children were in high school, they had to do Socratics, and they used to just fuss about it. And I was like, you all, if you don't stand up and represent, and they
understand the origins. That's
exactly.
Right.
I mean, but there's so much to learn in there. So I would love to just be able to be in the spirit of her and just sit amongst her, just like a little child that is looking up at, at a dear parent, to just ask questions and just to stand in that resilience of even what that looked like as a woman of color. Sure. And starting and being in that place of entrepreneurship and just being a dean, a principal of something, and believing and seeing that vision come to pass. And I would love to be able to continue to sit at the feet of my mother. I'll wrap up by saying that my mother would be my most exciting dinner guest. I watched my mom educate children beyond the classroom. My mom would bring children home, and I would have to tutor them. She would bring them home and say, Johnny needs help with spelling. I want you to sit down, write a plan out, and get him ready because he needs to pass my spelling test. His mom has said he can be over here 3 days a week, create a plan, and I would do it. Flashcards, different types of books I would write, would put the spelling words in the book, work with the child on reading. My mom has always believed in me, and she knew I was going to be an educator. She has supported every single celebration, every award, every district announcement I've received. She has been right there. And she was my first teacher, and she made teaching look fun and easy. And her students fell in love with her. And I would say, I got to be a teacher just like her. I'm going to be just like her. In every school I worked at, my mom visited. She would come, she would surprise me and show up in my classroom or my office. And I'm like, so I have to say that I'm blessed to have had a supporting cast. Yes. And my mother is definitely a top dinner guest because I have gleaned so much from her practices and watching her educate so many children, and so many that have called her mother because she's been right there for them and priding herself on education.
Well, I have to echo all that you said. She has poured into me certainly over the last year and a half, and what we've collectively had to experience. So she's absolutely amazing, her resiliency and the strength that she embodies. So I can only imagine what a spectacular teacher she was for thousands of students, and has just done a phenomenal job in producing 3 just extraordinary women. Yes. Extraordinary women. And so I'm just honored to know and love all of you all. Yes. And as far as Marva Collins, and you said that you hope to one day, replicate, or you are already doing that, Educator Jones. You embody that spirit and that fervor and tenacity that we want all of our, educators to have. And hats off to you because you are not exempt in terms of how the pandemic has impacted you. And at the administrative level, I know you saw more than enough. And so your roles and responsibilities were certainly compounded because, as you shared earlier, you're in the process of trying to keep your teachers intact and keep them well and whole so that they can then dispense the knowledge and information that they have been employed to do with, thousands of students, and then having to deal with the students and then the parents. And so hats off to you, but you have the spirit of Marva Collins still lives on. So I'm excited, through you and your work, I'm excited about what will be availed or we will see come to fruition as it relates to your business. We've talked so much about it. Please, before we wrap up, what's the point of contact for those parents, those students, and those K through 12 systems that would like to also engage your service? How can they reach you?
Thank you. So right now we are working based on good old fashioned email. So I have my inbox, but it is very much so controlled, where we get people that just simply say that they're interested. And from there, we set up Zoom consultation sessions, and we find out exactly what they want. We also put out calendar dates, but their first point of contact is to send an email, just good old fashioned email at this point. Send an email and being able to state that you want to be a potential client or just would like more information. From there, our team jumps on that. We get a calendar invite that is embedded within 48 hours, and we go ahead and schedule out. And from there, we get started with services. We are very happy to just to inform, but we don't necessarily give out pricings and things of that nature, because we first want to know exactly what can we do to help you. How can we help? How can we partner? And from there, we do work with people and we let them know exactly what we offer is more that has been explained in this particular session. Thank you so much for that. One thing we say is that our services are guaranteed and they are backed by professionals. So you are not dealing with Sideshow Bob. You are definitely dealing with—
We knew that.
Absolutely. You are dealing with top-notch expertise and professionals. So email is
certainly demonstrated that. Yeah, today. Absolutely. So the email address, how can they reach you?
So our email address is kjonesie26@gmail.com. So kjonesie26@gmail.com. After doing the inquiry of the email, we will then lead you to our Zoom session and give you all of the documentation and all of those Q&A pieces that you will need to make a fantastic decision, which is to partner with intentional intervention.
Excellent. And I know our producer will have that in the lower thirds for our viewers who missed that. We will have to have you come back, Ms. Kimberly Jones, founder and CEO of Intentional Intervention Consulting. Thank you for the thousands of parents, families, students, school systems for the work that you do. And your impact is just permeates so many different facets of society. And I've run out of words because, again, I can't really process the level of responsibilities that K through 12 educators have before them on a daily basis. That's where I started, that I really believe that it is a calling, and wasn't my calling. And I know my limitations, but I honor and have the utmost respect for those that walk that path on a daily basis, because you impact lives, not day to day, but generations to come. So thank you for the work that you've done and that you continue to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to coming back and having just even more to say as we continue to do this work together. Though you say you're not the called educator, but I still have so much respect for what you are doing in the education sector. You are preparing soldiers to go out there and to conquer the world. So my alma mater, I always will have pride and love for Albany State University. Yes. So Dr. Wilson, thank you for this opportunity, and I cannot wait to chat soon.
My pleasure. Call anytime. Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I look forward to seeing you next time.